Welcome back. I'm Michael Ray. You're listening to thought-provoking talk on Dresser After Dark. With Pop Hayden with us, he's the author of Stories of a Street Performer. He's not originally from the 21st century himself, but he's been trapped here with a bunch of maroons from other places, planets, and different times and different places. He's a magician, a comedian, a musician, and a medicine pitchman. He is a past vice president of the Magic Castle in Hollywood, and he's been named Performing Magician of the Year 6 times, winning in the categories of stage, close-up, parlor, and bar. And he's the co-founder with Chief Anton Schools for Scoundrels. And let's say, Whit, hi, welcome to the show. Pop.
Well, hi, how are you, Michael? Good evening.
Oh, good. And thank you so much for being here. What is a street performer?
Well, a street performer, it's one of the oldest kinds of performing where someone would go out on the street and sing or dance or some other skill and pass the hat and make some money.
Now, by the way,
that since the ancient Egyptian times.
And by the way, the street performer is all over the world, and everybody knows them in one way, shape, or form. I got to tell you,
I think there's not a culture in the world without it. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. The Magic Castle. Now, that's been around for years and years and years, hasn't it?
Yes, it's been around since 1963.
I know some of the old presidents were Lou Costello and people of that genre. So it's a famous place in Hollywood.
Yes, it is.
I remember 1,000 years ago, which I don't want to get into, but I was a performer. That was the very first place I ever played.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, how wonderful, yeah.
Yeah, I remember standing behind the curtain that first night, and you could feel the ghosts of all the old-timers there.
Oh, yes, you still can feel that.
Wonderful. What was it that caused you to do and be what you are today?
Well, a lot of different things. I started when I was a kid. I was into magic. I started magic when I was about 10 years old, about 9 years old, I guess. I wasted the first 9 years of my life kind of drifting. But at 9, I discovered magic, and I, got very interested in it, and then went on to finish high school and went to college. And that was the time of the Vietnam War and everything, and
yeah.
I had registered as a conscientious objector to the war at that time, and was the first person ever granted one of those from Pitt County, North Carolina. And I was sent up to New York to do alternative service, to work in a hospital. And then when I was called for service, I flunked the physical because of my eyesight and didn't have to serve. The hospital didn't want me anymore because I was not one of their people under control for 2 years. So I was left on the streets of New York City from North Carolina and started doing magic again to make a living.
Now, by the way, Pop, when you were in the UK, is magic in Europe different than magic here?
Oh, no, it's very much the same. I mean, the styles are slightly different, like the styles of a British comic to an American comic. But, you'll find that it's basically the same everywhere.
Magic is magic. And by the way, what is it about magic that thoroughly captivates audiences?
Well, I think that magic is one of those things that generates creative thinking. The magician is an expert at shutting down the deductive mind. You cannot solve a magic trick deductively. You can't figure it out by what you saw, because what you saw, there was some lie in it. One of the premises is a lie. So the conclusion is always going to come up wrong. The only way to figure out how to do a magic trick is to invent the trick yourself. You have to imagine, now how would somebody go about making me think I saw what I just saw? And you have to come up with different ways to do it until you find one that fits.
There's something interesting with magic. If you think about this, which I hadn't until just now, when you're dealing with magic, you're dealing with something that was there from the very beginning of civilization and has come all the way through. Think about everything else that has come, it's gone, it's whatever. But magic has stayed constant, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Eric Sevareid said something wonderful at one point. He was a commentator back in the 70s, and he just seen Doug Henning do the magic show on Broadway. And he said, you know, this reminds me of something my father told me when I was young. There's only two kinds of people in the world. There's people that can be had, and there's suckers.
Yeah.
The only difference between them is that everybody can be had, but a sucker's that individual that'll bet you $50 he can't be had.
Yeah. No, and I got it loud and clear. Yeah.
And he said, and I think maybe that's why these magicians are here around amongst us, to remind us we can all be had, so hopefully we won't become suckers.
Now, by the way, let me ask you this. What caused you to write the book?
Well, I wrote the book mainly for other magicians originally. It was a lecture I did at the Magic Castle on what a performer of any kind, a speaker, anybody that gets in front of an audience can learn from the experiences of working on the street, the things that I learned from my experiences. So the book was mainly just a series of stories I told about the people I had met and the things I had learned that have stood me in good stead since.
Sure. Now, without being a magician, as an average guy in the average world, what do we learn from the book? What do we take away?
Well, I think there's different things you can learn from it. I mean, basically, it's an interesting story. It's a story of an experience that most people don't have. I traveled around Europe, and I traveled in, I lived in New York and D.C. and other large cities and made my living doing magic on the streets. It was like a magic carpet. I traveled all over the world where I just could start on a street corner and start making money, and by the end of the evening, I'd have enough money for some place to stay and food to eat. And
yeah.
It was like magic carpet.
The fun
it's
stuff.
It's an interesting story, but also I think in there, too, is some stuff about the decisions I made, and that's what I learned about life, and I think those kind of things are important.
Now, by the way, is life in and of itself, is life magic? And when I say that, all of the things you put together to create the illusions, isn't life in and of itself like magic? And if you got a handle on magic, you might be able to get a handle on life.
Well, I think it probably works the other way better, but yeah, I think magic does. It reveals something about the human condition. Otherwise, it wouldn't be interesting.
No, absolutely.
There is no fraud in nature. But a magic trick, when I do make a coin disappear from my 2-year-old granddaughter when she was 2, she was astounded. And then I would do it again, and she was astounded. Then she made me do it again and again and again until finally she caught the coin was in my other hand. And she laughed and laughed. Well, I think that's really what the magic experience is supposed to be like.
It's called bring a little bit of joy, a little bit of comfort in somebody's life.
And she learned something. She learned you can't trust any nice-looking old granddaddy. He might be trying to cheat you.
That's all right. Yeah. Which cup is the pea under, right? But when
exactly.
Yeah. But
one of my favorite games.
Now, where did you learn? What caused you to want to learn this in the beginning? Because magic does not just come naturally.
No, magic is something you learn. It was actually, it's a funny thing, it was a missionary. My father was a minister, an Episcopal minister in Tennessee, and we had a missionary friend of ours stayed with us who had been working in Argentina. And he and his wife dressed up in gaucho costumes for us, to entertain us, to show us what the costumes were like. And he had put a mustache on with spirit gum. And then he showed me a little trick with the spirit gum where he could make it look like smoke was coming off his fingers. And that was like, when I was about 7 years old, that was the first magic trick I ever learned. And then when I was about 9, that's when I got turned on by something in magic, and I was hooked ever since.
Now, by the way, when we talk magic, then there's those phenomenal tricks like the Houdinis, and there's a few other people that do these things that the illusions are absolutely unbelievable, but they're so real. What does it take to do, magic at that level when you've got, tens of thousands of people watching and you disappear or you do something right in front of them?
Well, it takes a lot of money generally first.
Yeah.
The equipment gets more expensive the bigger it gets. And, it takes a lot of creativity. I'm a big fan of David Copperfield and all the modern big illusionists. That field is called grand illusion, or what we call an illusionist, somebody that does tricks with an animal bigger than a dog or with a human being. Those are grand illusions. The street magic is usually concerned with doing small magic.
Yeah.
Magic of the hands is all sleight of hand done with coins and rings and rope and, small items that you can manipulate with your hands.
Yeah. Now, by the way, when you're dealing with it, are there still the amount of people who love learning magic as there were years ago? Is there still that allure for certain people?
It has never been as powerful. I think we have way too many people interested in magic in some ways. It's very popular right now, and the magic shops are online, and magic videos are online. All the kids are making videos and stuff and showing each other their stuff.
Yeah, in our modern,
but it's still the same.
And our modern day politicians, the absolute masters of illusion.
Yes, I think that's been true all along.
Yeah, that's always the way it's been.
That's not that new.
Now, by the way, is this your first book?
No, this is my first book of general interest. The other books I've written have been on specific things like the history of the shell game and pre-card money and things like that. I've written technical books on magic and various routines of magic, and philosophy of magic. But this is the first thing that's really of general interest.
Yeah, Pop, is there a website we can find you at?
Yes, of course. There would be pophayden.com. There's no E in Hayden. It's spelled like Haydn. Just pophayden.com.
Wonderful. And by the way, thank you so much for being on the show with us tonight.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care. Good night.
Good night.